Earlier this year, Pizza Tower was announced for Switch, and you have no idea how excited I was for this. Not only would it introduce an opportunity for more people to experience this wonderful game, but it'd also allow me to play the game on the go, on a bigger screen, and make it much easier to play co-op mode and make YouTube videos on the game because I'm terrible at using computers. So with this opportunity at hand, I decided to tackle a challenge that's been at the back of my mind for a better part of a year now. Can you beat Pizza Tower without the attack button? Essentially, this challenge boils down to beating the game in the least amount of inputs of the attack button as possible. Enough babbling, let's get into it. Wait, hold on, I'm getting ahead of myself. We need to establish what exactly we can and can't do. While that may seem simple at first, we can't grab or throw enemies, but there's actually a lot more to our moveset that is restricted if we go by these rules. So let's go over everything now we can't do under these conditions. Grab, throw, pile driver, long jump, uppercut, slide, not to be confused with the other slide, brick kick, lariat, wall jump, cancel, and bomb throws, along with the plethora of transformations and advanced tactics that use the attack button. However, unless if I'm forgetting something, everything else in Peppino and the Noises movesets is fair game. I'll be playing in swap mode for this challenge as there's maybe certain things in which a certain character may be able to do with less attack inputs than the other, and I believe I have nothing else to say, so let's get into it, starting with... Given that John Gutter is much more of a playground for you to test your moveset with no real mechanics or tricks involved, things started off not too difficult. The only thing to note really is that I was still having growing pains getting used to not being able to access a large portion of our kit, meaning I was screwing up every 5 seconds, but there's nowhere in this stage where things got extremely difficult. Heck, you could probably P-rank this level with these rules applied and not have too many issues, to be honest. Pizzascape went off to a more difficult start, as not only was I still messing up more times than there are Mr. Beast drama videos, but I also entered this room where the only way to get through is by knocking away the stupid rat, and to knock him away we need to grab the night power up. Unfortunately there's no other way to get through here, so we have to make our first express the challenge. Given that the night power up is littered throughout this level, you'd think we're gonna have to press the attack button another dozen times, and you'd be wrong. While the night transformation appears a lot here, unless there's a room where the rat's blocking the path, we don't actually need to get most of these transformations, meaning we can skip these two, although we do have to miss one of the top ends. Then there's no other way past this one, so we have to press X a second time, and the last one can also be skipped using the Noises Crusher jump. After that it's just a sprint back to the start and we can move on to... The two mechanics that show up in Agent Cheese are the bombs and the cheese blocks. The cheese blocks are, for the most part, a non-issue, but the bombs on the other hand, yeah, we've got to pick them up again. Normally, if you're playing as Peppino, you first have to pick up the bombs and then also throw them, adding 2 X presses to the counter. But as the Noise, you could just pick up the bomb and ram into the rat like an American football player, costing us only 1 press of the button. However, Ancient Cheese has a lot more areas where the bomb is required than the Night was in Pizzascape. The level is an absolute breeze to play through otherwise, but we have to use the bomb and therefore also press the X button at least 5 times here, more than twice of what Pizzascape had us to do. Normally Blood Source Dungeon is a massive challenge for new players, but well, given that this level at its simplest is literally just turning left and right and then climbing back up on beta time, this level is actually pretty easy. It genuinely just does pretty much feel like regular Blood Source as well. There's nowhere red attacking is required, nor is it particularly more difficult. I would say more about this level, but it didn't really pose any much of a challenge when getting through it, even with these rules applied. But that's all the levels done for floor 1, but before we can move on to floor 2, we have to tackle... Normally with the bosses, the attack button is the main way we pound them in, but now we can't use it, so what can we use? Well, thankfully for most bosses, while they are vulnerable, we can use either the ground pound or the Mac run to do damage to the bosses, so I think you can see where I'm going with this. Even without the reliability of the regular attack, the ground pound still plows through Pepperman with no issue. Something the ground pound can't break through though is the statues. We need to break these statues to make Pepperman vulnerable, but the only way to break them is through attacking. In his first phase they take 3 hits to break and 6 hits in the second phase. He uses his attack twice in both phases, so altogether we have to press X 18 times in this fight. As for the total amount of X presses in floor 1, we have 2 in Pizzascape, 5 in Ancient Cheese, and 18 in Pepperman's fight. But we can still get through John Gutter and Blood Source completely clean, leading us with a total of 25. But now we can move on to World 2, starting with... Given that Oregano Desert has like 5 different gimmicks to its name, you'd imagine the level would be hell, but actually it's not too bad for the most part. The pizza marts can be ran through with no issue at all, the thunderclouds can be bypassed as long as you're careful, the cows are already annoying so nothing changes there. As for the Firemouth transformation though, you can destroy the rats in TNT boxes just by walking into them, meaning you don't have to air dash. Not being able to air dash does make the Firemouth section slightly more tedious, but it doesn't make it any less possible without attacking. I think now's a good time to mention that, for the most part, each of these levels are difficult to really classify as hard, given that the pain is normally felt in your score and doing P ranks and X ranks is what most players find difficult, but here we're not worrying about that, so excluding the times where we're forced to press X, where do we feel the pain? The realisation that even in the game that I've sunk dozens of hours into in the past year, I can still barely function. I'm not sure if it's because of the handicap, the pressure of playing while recording, or just genuinely being bad at video games, but man, the amount of times I screwed up very simple maneuvers in one of the easiest levels in the game, mind you, was just, well, not my most proud moment. Wasteyard itself, as I said, was pretty easy, especially given that it's one of the shortest levels and is also very narrow, but looking back at the footage and seeing myself getting caught by John Ghost in stupid ways at rooms where I wouldn't even use the X button all that much made me wonder how much it's actually improved from a year back when I first played the game and I had no idea what I was doing. As for the Ghost transformation itself, it's completely the same as how it is regularly, as long as you're playing as Peppino. Peppino can just ram through any of the blocks he needs to destroy to continue, but the Noise has to use his dash to break through the blocks, which isn't what we want in this challenge. But as long as you stick with Peppino in these sections, the level is fine, but if you do end up getting ghosted as the Noise, you will have to restart the level to avoid pressing X. Given that Fun Farm is designed to be played at a slightly slower pace than the rest of the levels, it was quite alright. It was more relaxed and I could take my time so I didn't have to worry about anything. Is what I would say if this godforsaken rascal didn't exist. Heck, you're not even supposed to be here, go back to your own game. Tangent aside, the fact that Mort's here as well as a truckload of rats, we unfortunately had to do a lot of X presses here. Not only to kill the rats, but also to latch onto the hooks throughout the level. I tried to limit the presses as much as I could, such as in this room where I skipped the first platforming section by leaping across the pit like a sociopath, but I still had to press X a total of 13 times, by far the highest amount so far besides bosses. Fast Food Saloon has the weenie mount, and as we have to grab it, we gotta press X even more times. However, just like in Pizzascape, we can actually ignore a few times the weenie mount via some unique strategies. In this first room, you're supposed to take the weenie mount and drop through the cheese blocks and break the rat to get the cheese topping, but if you just walk up to the wall and crouch, we can just skip this entirely while still getting the cheese topping. And later during the final horsey race, if we open the gate and let the KFC fried chicken run through here, we can actually break the second route without remounting the weenie. Plus we can also skip the weenie transformation here, although we do have to abandon the pineapple topping to do so. So while we managed to save 3 X presses here, we still unfortunately have to use X to grab the weenie mount 4 times through this level. 1 here, 2 in this room, and once in the final horsey races we skip the other one with our big red plays. So remember what I said about Pepperman and how we can easily beat the bosses by ground pounding them while they're vulnerable? Yeah, that doesn't work here. Unfortunately, Vigilante doesn't do things like the other bosses, as rather than pounding him in like a League of Legends player pounds their monitors, we have a gun. Oh yeah, and bombs, but basically these are the only options we have to attack him, as he is completely invulnerable to ground pounds and Italians running a Mark III. 2 fully charged gunshots or bomb throws take 1 health point out, and given that the bombs don't have to be charged and it's a lot easier to hit them, I just stuck with the Noise on this level. Another thing as well was that these cardboard cutouts and all the other projectiles were a pain to deal with, as you either have to waste a bomb on them or position yourself to avoid them, and I did end up wasting a shot on a cutout during the fight. That, including the 2 hits per point of health, leads us to a total of 37 X presses during the fight. Also, just remember to deal the final hit with a Noise, as rather than doing a quick time event, he just decides to take the wheel himself and just shoots Vidyu with a big ass block, leaving you without having to make an input. But for floor 2 in total, we managed to get by Oregano Desert and Wasteyard with 0 X presses, yet we had to make 13 presses in Fun Farm, 4 in Fast Food Saloon, and 37 in Vigilante's fight for a total of 54 presses. This is already not looking good. Kicking off floor 3, we have Crust Cove, which goes very swimmingly actually. The top-ins aren't too much of a hassle to get, the barrel power-up doesn't use the attack button so there's no problems there, and the layout of the map just made it a breeze to go through. It barely even felt like my moveset was handicapped in the first place. I wish I could say more about this level, but it doesn't pose much discussion given the context of the challenge, as we can get through it easily with 0 X-Pressers. Now, this should be the time where I talk about how Gustavo and Brick work, but to be honest, I just sped through most of the level as the noise. Given that the only moves in his moveset that we can't use are his Lariat and the Brick Kick, he sort of just feels like a slower Papino that can double jump, and he also can only wall jump and not wall climb, so yeah, let's just stick to the noise. Speaking of him, I actually learned something here which I'm surprised I hadn't found yet. I already knew that the super jump can be cancelled for either character with both the attack and sprint buttons, so as long as I was pressing sprint to cancel, I called it fair game. But what I didn't know was this property also works for the noise's crusher jump. Wait. Huh? Oh! I don't know why this took me so long to figure out, and I have no idea why this property only works with these 2 moves and not the rest of Noise's moveset, but oh well, I guess it's nice to know. As for the level itself, yeah, known for is, yeah, fun, gaming, yippee. Oh, by the way, check this shit out. What the hell are we up there? Funny, right? Yeah, there's nothing to say about Gnome Forester, it's easy, let's just move on. You'd think that because this level has 2 abilities to worry about instead of 1, there's going to be tons of X-Pressers, right? Well, thankfully we've been blessed as neither the Rocket nor Olive Bubble actually involve pressing X at all. However, just like Waste Yard, this level is very short with lots of narrow paths, so you would imagine I'd have fun making mistakes every 3 seconds, and okay, I'll admit I did mess up like the idiot I am from time to time, but for the most part this level was pretty smooth sailing. The next level, on the other hand, was interesting, to say the least. Golf is a weird level. Not only is it extremely different to the rest of the levels in general, as rather speeding through the level destroying everything in our path, we instead have a detour with Greaseball. And in a challenge run as such as this, we have to really improvise on our strategy more than any other level in the game. Normally you're expected to just grab the Greaseball and then hit it as you have full control, can aim your shot and take the Greaseball away from the noses without losing him completely, but we can't do that here. However, we can still hit him by ground pounding or sprinting, plus we can push him forward slightly by jumping on him. To start off with though, I was all over the place and I think this clip shows this the best.
Do you think? Are you flipping kidding me? Oh god, is that what? Oh my god. That what? No, that's the wrong way. The wrong way.
However, what makes this level difficult is it's designed with grabbing and swinging him in mind, and it's meant to be used for several parts of the level, which is why we have to improvise our shots so much. Such as here, normally we're meant to grab Greaseball and launch him upwards, but given we can't do that, I instead sprint into him, then hit him again as he bounces off the wall to get him over. Even though you only play the mini courses to get the top ends and they aren't actually required to be the level, I went for them anyway, and the fry course was pretty easy, but here in the soda course, to hit the Greaseball up to the cheese catcher here, I knocked Greaseball up with a ground pound and then hit him again with another ground pound. Then I spent, and I kid you not, almost 40 seconds being very bad at the game, and oh my god, this is worse than someone playing the game for the first time. The Berg course had no real issues getting through, and then came the final course. I wanted to try and do this trick to skip the 2 courses in pizza time because I was worried they might cause some issues, but the only way to do that was to pick up the burger enemy and place him here, so that wasn't gonna happen. After a lot of trying, I bit the bullet and activated pizza time. I got to this course here which really worried me, as to get the ball in the hole you need to grab it and hit it up, but none of our available moves can do that. What made this worse as well is I was in pizza time, meaning if I didn't hurry up I may have a visit from Pizza Face. I was beginning to panic, but then this happened.
Let's go! No way did that flipping work!
The course after that was really easy, so I was just on a straight shot to the finish, where we somehow managed to complete golf with a score of 0 X-Pressers. Even against all the odds, I somehow managed to do that. So, yippee, I guess. Unlike the first two bosses whose main mechanics revolved around pressing X, the Doisis gimmick is having a random attack pattern, which means we're free to clobber him without actually needing to press X at all. The rocks were a bit annoying.
Like, ah.
Especially later in the fight when there's multiple on the screen, but besides that the fight isn't bad at all. In fact, you know what? I'm gonna go P rank it. I'm so goddamn good at this game. For floor 3 in total, wait, hold on. There's actually wasn't a single X press in floor 3 at all. We managed to get through this world completely clean somehow. Well, let's just hope it stays that way in world 4, I guess. The Pig City was a fairly simple level. Each of the top end areas were fairly easy to get through, and hey, we get to see Gustavo and Brick again. The level itself though can be very easily beaten with no X presses. However, just note that if you're using the rat balloon with the noise, normally you're supposed to press X to pop a balloon, but it will automatically pop if you just fly up for long enough or get hit by an enemy. Peppybot for some reason starts off with some underground area, which is pretty easy to get through as it's mostly vertical and you can skip the bomb areas with no problem, and the first half of the factory is also a breeze to go through, but just before pizza time, this thing gets introduced. The pizza box gives you the ability of flight, as well as the spin attack, and while on Oregano Desert the fire mouth kills rats just by walking into them, so there's no problems here, there are dozens of rats to deal with and we can't just walk into them. So in total we have to press X 12 times to kill each of the rats here, plus another one to break the block as there's no way to get past here without the Stamper transforming us against our will. Oh shucks, doesn't pose any threat for us thankfully, as neither of the transformations involve pressing X, meaning we can kill all the rats we want without adding to the counter. Given that by this point I was fairly used to the playstyle now, each level by themselves was actually pretty easy, which is why I've probably said something on the lines of that 10 times now. It was just like playing a regular playthrough almost, no P ranks or speedrunning to worry about either, so the levels that had no attack presses at all were actually quite refreshing to play through, and oh shucks was no different. Refrigerador Freezerator once again had no issues in regards of X presses, as rather than committing genocide on rats to continue through the level, we're instead getting rid of ice using the thermostats in the Devil's Pizza. I fell off the map more times than I'd like to admit, but besides that this level was pretty chill. You get the joke? Just like the Dois, Fake Peppino doesn't have any tricks forcing us to press X, so this should be easy, right? Right? Yeah, no, it was hell. You see, Fake Peppino is different to the other bosses. Unlike the others where you have to wait for them to be vulnerable, Fake Peppino is almost always vulnerable. However, not only do you have to hit him twice to actually stun him, but he's always moving. You have to be very careful about timing your ground pound to sprint, as it might just get you smacked in the face. Also, given Fake Peppino's frantic nature, the parry is very useful here, as due to your attacks being much slower and therefore more often in a bad position, the parry is a godsend for keeping you alive and ready to attack. In the first phase, the clones aren't actually much of a problem as you're only focused on dodging them, but in the second phase it becomes a whole new problem as they begin attacking alongside Fake Peppino, meaning you have to do everything I just said, while also dealing with background enemies constantly swarming you. It makes Fake Peppino feel so difficult and made the entire thing feel like a chore. Heck, I almost died trying to defeat him. But eventually we managed to knock him down, and after scaring the dog away, the boss is done. Even though we can get through it without attacking, the entire thing was just painful. But all of that is behind us now as we enter the final floor. Despite supposedly being a harder version of Peterscape, Peterscape doesn't actually use the night transformation at all, nor any of the other transformations or areas that require the attack button. The ball transformation is here and is probably the most boring ability in the game. The Executioner's Ghost Killer thing is just a passive transformation and doesn't actually change your moveset, and the King Ghost is just annoying. But none of that stops us from completing the level with no X presses, and we can move swiftly along to... Don't Make a Sound was quite an interesting level, as up until the end of the level where you unlock a certain firearm, the entire level revolves around avoiding the alarms and not waking up the animatronics. The thing is, if you do activate an alarm, you normally either have to quickly dispose of it or bolt out of the room ASAP. And while the same applies here, when your moveset is limited, you have to be really quick on which route you decide to go. And while you only get sent back to the start of the room if you're caught by the top-end monsters, it still makes the level even more stressful as you try to work your way through. Not only that, but there are these areas where you're forced to activate the animatronics, and the fact that you can't grab to get to max speed quicker means that if you mess up somewhere, it feels like forever before you can sprint again, and when you're being chased by a totally not FNAF inspired robot, it becomes quite stressful. If you keep a steady mind and stay fluent with the controls, which I hope you are now given that this is the final world, you'll probably be fine. However, when you get to the end of the level, you have a gun, which, you guessed it, uses X. Not only do you have to grab it with X, but you also have to use it to destroy the blocks, as well as the animatronics. So 1 and 2 here, another one here to kill everything, another one to kill the tomato monster, and 2 more for these blocks here. But when you're close to finishing pizza time, you come across the mushroom top and you encountered in the first room. But given that these rooms are more spacious, I tried to do some experimenting. It takes some precision and luck, but if you get it right you can squeeze past both mushroom monsters with no X presses, which is pretty cool I guess. But altogether that's 5 X presses for Don't Make a Sound. Let's hope we don't see that shotgun anymore. God damn it! War immediately hands us a gun and a bomb, and we have to get out of there as soon as possible, shooting everything in our path, except we can't shoot. So this is fun. Thankfully there are no top-end monsters this time, so the only thing we need to use it for is if there's blocks in our path that only the gun can destroy. I would go into detail where we had to use the gun each time, like in Don't Make a Sound, but writing this script is making me lose my mind, and I've probably repeated myself like 13 times already, so let's just make things quick. We have to press X to shoot our gun here, 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 and also here because I pressed X on accident, leading to 10 X presses, which is actually less than I was expecting. So I guess that's it? I opened the door, ran down the hallway, went through the window, and launched myself up to the roof to begin the final boss. Wait, hold on a minute though, because while making this script and watching back on the footage, I had an epiphany, a realization, that for the past 5 minutes, I've been lying to each of you watching this video and to myself. So I went back and did some testing. You see, the gun has another perk. If you press down while in the air, you will shoot down then ground pound without pressing X at all. Of course I knew this attack existed before doing this challenge, but what I failed to recognise at the time was, despite the angle the gun is shot at, you can still destroy blocks that are right next to you, and you can still kill the top-end monsters, albeit at a certain angle, with this meaning that the only time that X is required in these levels is to actually grab the gun and nowhere else. Meaning I wasted so many X presses that I didn't even need. But there's no way I can change that now, and the only way to go is forwards, so I opened the door, ran down the hallway, and wait, haven't we already done this before? Normally in the first phase of this fight we'd have to pick up the enemies that Pizza Face spawns in and launch it back to him to attack the geezer, but we have the noise, and the noise doesn't care. So instead, we can ground pound him when he slams down and becomes vulnerable, making this phase a total cakewalk. Hey, maybe this boss won't be so bad. God damn it! So, Pizza Head shows up in this phase, and with him he brings back the revolver, meaning we have to succumb to pressing X a lot. The thing is, Pizza Head has a lot more health than Vigi, and Pizza Head also doesn't actually get stunned when he loses health like the other bosses, meaning tallying the exact amount of presses in this phase alone wasn't fun, and you can definitely hear in my voice of the raw footage the totally not anxiety filled pain in my head from the mere ridiculousness of the challenge.
22, 23, 24, already halfway, god damn it. 32, 33, 34, 35.
Looking back through the footage, altogether it took 48 hits to take Pizza Head down, but I ended up wasting a bomb on one of the gears that Pizza Face spawns in, so that's great. But Pizza Head isn't done yet, as he scoops up all of the previous bosses to fight us once again, and frankly, I wasn't having it, and neither was the noise. Now that we're going rapid fire on each of the bosses, having to deal with less attacks and mechanics makes it a lot easier to manage, for the most part. Pepperman is taken out easily as thankfully his statues do not come back, but then comes Vigi. Thankfully we have Gustavo helping us out, and my big brain had a thought that if I grabbed Gustavo and pile drived him into Vigilante, I could hit him while only pressing X once instead of twice. So I gave it a go, and hey, it worked the first time, so I tried it again and I missed. Then I missed again, and again. So I gave up and just tried to clobber him normally because clearly this wasn't working. Including the times I messed up, I had to press attack 10 times to take down Vigilante, which wasn't great given what we had already worked on with phase 2, but moving on. The Doise is still dead, and we managed to work through Fake Peppino despite the trouble he'd given us before with no problems, and last but not least, Pizza Head. Thankfully he's letting us off easy as we have no gun anymore and he's just flailing around like an idiot. Given how long his attacks are compared to his downtime though, you do have to be quite precise when there's an opening, but do everything right and you can take down a doughy maniac once and for all. Altogether, the final boss adds 59 X presses to the counter, and with that, it's over, right? But no, it can't be over. We came all this way up the tower, now we have to make our way back down. But you know what? I don't want to. The Crumbling Tower of Pizza is a culmination of everything we've learnt and experienced for our adventure, which means we came across some familiar faces. The gun is back, and just like before, my dumbass forgot that the ground pound could break the target, so I ended up pressing X 4 times during the gun section. But that's not it, as the weenie mount shows up again, adding another X press to the counter. Greaseball also shows up again for one last hole, but just like before we can get through it with no trouble, and hey look, I got a par. But there are no other transformations or anything past this point, so it's just a straight shot to the finish with the Crumbling Tower of Pizza bookending the challenge with 5 X presses. Even though we could have narrowed it down to 2. With that, we've escaped the tower and we can have our final evaluation on the scores. In floor 1 we had a total of 25, floor 2 has 54, floor 3 is completely clean with 0, floor 4 only gave us 13 due to Peppybot Factory, and totaling everything up on floor 5 we have 74 attack button presses. Adding everything up we have a grand total of 166 X presses. Now, can this number be shortened? Absolutely, and by quite a large margin. Of course, as I already mentioned, the levels that use the gun can be heavily shortened with the ground pound. There's probably more places in levels where I could have skipped pressing X somewhere with the correct route and strategy, and if we got rid of all the places that I pressed X on accident, this can definitely be lowered by a lot. Plus, if we collect enough top-ins, we have enough money to skip a level, which I could have done, but I preferred to include every level, as just ignoring a level because I can would be a disservice not only to the challenge and to the game as a whole. Each of these levels were wonderfully crafted with Peppino's moveset in mind, and having this handicap makes you look at each level in a completely different way, having to improvise and reduce pressing X as much as possible. This is why Pizza Tower is one of my favourite games. Even after countless hours of playtime and the game being out for over a year, it still finds ways to amaze me. So if you haven't yet, have a go and play Pizza Tower. It's genuinely an amazing game and is very much worth the money. But with that, the challenge is over, and given what I just put him through, I'm not surprised that Theodore isn't too fond of me. Thanks for getting to the end of this video. If you enjoyed, I'd really appreciate it if you liked and subscribed, as it means a whole lot to me and I'm really hoping to carry on improving and growing the channel. And hey, why not give a comment while you're at it? I'll probably give Tricky Treat a go at some point when this rule's set, when I have the chance, but besides that, the next video will probably be something Smash Bros related, but I'm not completely sure. Thanks a lot for watching, and I have nothing else to say, so see you fellas.